Hey, Jeff, really quickly, I think you might be on mute. I see your mouth moving.
You are absolutely right. We're going to completely start over.
You looked confident. I was digging
Yeah,
it.
I was killing it too. Let me start over. Welcome everybody to a special edition of Alexa and Friends. Today we're focusing on women in voice, and I'm really excited to have this conversation today. We have a couple of women trailblazers in the field of voice AI that are joining us, and each of them have a special connection to Amazon and Alexa. So I want to make sure that I introduce each of them individually, and then we're going to kind of jump into our traditional format of asking some silly questions and getting to know who they are and what their backgrounds are. So first, let me introduce Dr. Joan Palmer-Bajorek. Thank you for being here, Joan.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly. Second, we have Alarna Che.
Hello, hello.
Hello
Hi.
and welcome. And Jenny Marrow.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Certainly. So thank you guys all for being here. So one of the things that I really like to do when we start these episodes is to ask some kind of humanizing questions to everyone. And usually this is a one-on-one kind of conversation, so people don't get a lot of time to think about their answers. But in this format, you will have a little bit of time. And so one of the fun things that I would like to do, and you can just pretend if you don't actually want to do this, but I'm going to ask the question, and I'd like each of you to write your answer down so you're committed to it, so that you don't have time to change your answer once you listen to someone else give theirs. So the first question that I would like to start with is I want you to imagine for a moment that you're in some kind of rock band, and you guys, your band has decided to put together your debut album. So you have a bunch of songs that you put together and you're releasing them all together as an album. What is the name of your debut album? What would you call it? It has something, probably some meaning to maybe your youth or growing up, or some philosophy you have on life usually, but I'd be very interested to know what your debut album is. And Joan, I'll start with you.
Oh gosh. Well, it's interesting you mentioned the debut album because I've been there's more and more Netflix things coming out where people are like processing their life and you see different episodes and different seasons. And so I've been thinking about if I had a Netflix show or like the series I'm on
Oh
would
yeah,
be called Almost.
almost.
Almost. I think there's a lot of, I'm an influencer in our field, right? But I think the kind of maybe too deep for early on this morning, but kind of the identity of the public and the private and kind of what's going on and really feeling, when I'm at the stage at CES, like on stage, versus like Joan going running in the neighborhood, and then
Yep.
that kind of duality back and
Yeah.
forth. So I think that could also be a really good musical. Like I could see, or like an album, like
Yeah.
sad days where you feel like you're killing it, top of the world,
Right.
So
No, I can definitely identify with that because, like I'm, especially this past year, I'm here in my house with my family all the time, and I'm just dad or husband to them. But sometimes I have to be like, there's people that care what I have to say online, right? It's
yeah.
it's weird to think about that duality. That's a great one. So Alarna, what's your thought on an album title?
Yeah, this one is pretty hard because when I was younger, um, I love songwriting. So I did write a lot of songs when I was younger. Um, and I just had this collection of songs that I would write. And then I actually had an album name called, it's so cringy, but I called it Straight from the Heart. And I think I should kind of go back to my younger self and give that as a present. So I would call my album Straight from the Heart for 7-year-old Alana. So
I love it.
that's what I do.
I love it. And then like straight from the heart, that's something like you could just keep going with that, right? Second album, Straight from the Heart, Volume 2.
Exactly. I don't know what I was thinking at that age, especially because I hadn't gone through any sort of relationship or breakup. But looking at some of the songs, I was already like in that moment.
Oh
So
yeah. 7-year-old heartbreak, man. All right, Jenny, we'll move on to you. What is your thought on a debut album title?
Okay, I am terrible at this. I think it might be something like Breaking Barriers. I grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, which is like one of the toughest parts of Brooklyn. And at every stage of my life, I've always tested um, all the limits that have been set on me. So I think the story of my life is literally breaking barriers.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And especially as we talk about women in technology, I mean, there have been no shortage of barriers just in this industry alone. But though, when we think about being online and all the other things, the challenges sometimes that come with being a woman in those places. I'm sure there's no shortage of barriers that you've busted through. So that's awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next one. This is a little more fun, a little less ethereal. I want you to each for a moment. I'm sure you've seen one of the superhero movies that have come out over the past 10 or 15 years. If you could pick a superpower, just one, so you can't be Wonder Woman or Superman, like you have to pick just one superpower because they usually have multiple. What would your superpower be and why? And we'll start with Alarna this time.
Again, I'd probably go back to my younger self, and I've had this question on lockdown for the longest of time. So, funny fact, I love The Incredibles, so I was obsessed with them, and instead of wanting to be one of them, I made my own character as myself called Alana the Incredible. So I actually had the power of telekinesis. And obviously Wonder and Vision as well. You know, you get to explore more of that power. So I love telekinesis.
I love that. Telekinesis is a powerful one. Do you have a reason specifically that telekinesis is important to you?
Yes, I think it's there's the element of surprise, and because in terms of also you don't want to have something that's too odd where the government will come and test on you and stuff. So I want something where I could pass as like a normal job, maybe a magician. And then that way I can get away with it, and also you make people happy. You could be like, here's a flower, and then present something like that. So
I like that. One of the follow-up questions, I won't do that today because we have all three of you, but one of the follow-up questions I usually have is, how would you use that power for good? Because I think it's very easy when we think about superpowers about how you would use that for evil, but sometimes some superpowers don't have necessarily a good application. So I like yours though, making people happy. That's lovely. Jenny, how about you?
So I think I'd like the power of teleportation, because I feel like I could get just a little more sleep. I love to travel. My life would just be a little more efficient. Funny story is I feel like I've developed a psychic tendency after a few weeks ago. A block of snow fell on my head after a blizzard here in New York, and I've had vivid dreams that have come true. Like someone in my inner circle, I dreamt that there was a pregnancy, and then a few days later they announced a pregnancy. So nice. I have a little bit in real life.
This is like, you've written your whole origin story, right? You see the early part, it's probably in black and white, where she's just out shoveling the driveway, and then the snow hits her in the head, and then all of a sudden she can like fly and read people's minds and teleport. I think you've got a good story there.
This one, I was walking my dog, so no shoveling driveway, just walking the dog in New York City.
Right, man. Well, I'm glad you're okay and that there wasn't any serious injury, but that's a good story. Thank you. All right, Joan, you had your time.
Yeah. Well, interesting that Jenny and mine are somewhat similar. Mine would be flying, which I think is kind of a basic one, but like I hate driving and I travel a lot. I think it'd be really cold, actually. I think about like you have to put a huge parka on or something, or have a special suit. But the ability to go different places and meet different people and not be stuck in traffic or have to go to the airport sounds very, very, and I think it could be fun. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how this would look, but as a kid in my dreams, similar to Alarna, like I had so many dreams of flying, and for me it was swimming. I used to swim a lot, and so like literally breaststroke is what my flying looks like. So that's making it happen, flying.
Yeah, and it's always interesting when I ask people about what their superpower would be, that they have a very clear and obvious problem that they want to solve. But like in Jenny's example, Jenny wanted to be able to teleport because she wouldn't have a commute, she wouldn't have to worry about like travel time. And the one thing that you specifically called out was I would get more sleep. And it seems like maybe the superpower I would pick for you is the ability to never be tired. Like, let's just solve that straight away, right? And then you have all the energy and the time and whatever you need because you never get sleepy. But it is always interesting how we try to like end around our superpowers a little bit just to solve a problem. But I would rather just not be tired all the time. I'm turning 45 this year, and I'm always tired now. Like, that's just how it works. So I totally understand. Okay, last question. This is a relatively quick answer. So I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I'd like each of you to just kind of tell me what your answer is to this. I want you to imagine for a minute that you're walking down a big city street. Maybe there's no snow falling on you this time, but it's a large city, and you know that there's a block over that the place that you want to go. Maybe it's a restaurant or you're meeting some friends or something. And so you could walk all the way around that city block and come back up. Or there's this alley that just happens to be here that would cut you right straight through to where you need to be. And so with this alley, it's bright, it's light out, doesn't look sketchy or shady at all. You decide to cut down that alley. And as you get about halfway down the alley, you notice at the other end, the end you're heading towards, a giant horse-sized duck appears. And this horse-sized duck looks a little aggressive. Like maybe you're going to have a little scuffle with this duck. And so as any natural human would do, you turn around and you say, well, I'm not going down the rest of this alley. And just as you turn around, at the other end emerges 100 small duck-sized horses. They too look like they might be down for a fight. So the question for all of you is, knowing you're stuck in this alley and the only way out is to go one of the ends, which direction do you choose and why? And Jenny, I'll let you go first this time.
So I pick to fight one
giant duck or 100
Yes.
tiny horses.
Yes, I think one enemy makes sense rather than 100
All right.
little
One
ones.
big duck. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Joan?
I'm going for the 100 horses, mini horses. I do a workout where I'm bouncing or like my feet go, and I think there's potential to move through that kind of like a course. Like there's a potential there. Jenny's answer is totally valid too, but sounds scary, and it's one of those split second decisions, right? Like you just have to go for it. That's right.
And honestly, everybody brings a different skill set. I mean, maybe Jenny has like equestrian background and she knows how to mount a giant duck and just get up there and do it. So who knows? How about you, Alarna?
I would agree with Jenny and say the big one, the big guy. Only because if you have the main character energy, you've got War of the Worlds, Godzilla, you can escape, no problem.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I think I am also in the giant duck cat camp because I imagine Joan. There's nothing wrong with your answer. I'm just saying this is what mine is. But if you imagine just being at the park and suddenly you go to catch a frisbee and you miss it, so you run a little in the distance, and then all of a sudden you realize you're surrounded by just 100 normal ducks. That's a lot of ducks. And I feel like that would be incredibly intimidating. But don't get me wrong, if I saw a giant duck, that would have its own set of challenges. I always joke with the audience that I would love for someone to paint me a painting where I'm sitting on top of a giant horse-sized duck, maybe wearing like Revolutionary War garb. I think that would be. I'm waiting for that painting to exist. So hopefully someday, if I ask enough, maybe that'll happen. All right, so let's get into some of the real content that we're here for today. But thank you guys for humoring me with my silly questions. Each of you has had a really interesting journey into the world of voice. And one of the things that I'd really like to know from each of you is what kind of got you involved in this specific tech field? Why did you choose it? Sometimes it chose you? I'd love to know kind of what your origin story is, I guess. How did you get into voice? What was the thing that drew you in? And we'll start with Alarna.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I could say like 10 years ago, I didn't really know about computer science at all until I was 16, 17. And then moving into university, that was when I kind of was introduced to voice during my placement year. I did like an internship year at this company for web development. And I just remember seeing the adverts of Alexa and all that. And then I was like, this would make a great present for my mum. So for Christmas, I got her one of those devices, the little Echo Dots. And when we set it up, all the apps that were on there, we actually thought were part of Alexa. And I wasn't aware that it was a third-party developers that were actually making these skills. Oh. So I remember, like, a few months later, I had an email from AWS saying, like, build an Alexa skill. And I just tried it out, and I fell in love with it, mainly because I'm not very good with graphic design or any visual aspects of things. So it kind of drew me towards actually making something where I could just focus on like the UX and interaction design. And then ever since, I've just been making and building and creating.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think I come from it from a different perspective. Like I grew up in web development, UI, UX design kind of stuff, and I found it to be a relief. But I will, and I'm sure you can attest to this. Building a compelling voice user interface, even though there's no graphics involved, is a really serious challenge, and one that shouldn't be taken lightly. I think a lot of people look at it like you just described and said, "Oh, no graphics, I'm in." But it's as or more hard than that. So thank you for sharing that story. That's awesome. So you really just got involved by picking up an Echo and being like, "This is so cool. I need to do this." I love that.
Yes, I love new technology, so that was another bonus as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Jenny, what is your origin story? How did you get into this world?
Well, purely by accident. I was a journalist for a long time, and I started dabbling with web technologies. And just because I oversaw a lot of website redesigns in some of my roles, and I kind of wanted to know what was under the hood, so that when I spoke to developers, when they would say, "Hey, you can't do that," or "That's going to take a little longer," I want to know why, and just use the same lingo they were using. And that led them to experimenting with iOS development and learning a simple, easy language called Objective-C. and around the same time, 2017, 2018, I came across a course for building an Alexa skill. And so I built my first two skills and thought nobody would ever use them, and built them really for family members. And so I kind of left them there, and to my surprise, people did use them and were leaving reviews. And so here I am. But I think the journalism experience I have has come into play, and this is a great way for me to blend the tech and the creative side. So I am having a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great.
And here I am.
I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Joan, how about you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Jenny mentions like previously journalist, like I'm an ex-academic. It was probably 2015 where I was researching Duolingo interfaces and really thinking about how we set up interfaces in general when they're multilingual. And there was this voice component, like speak into it and we'll tell you if your pronunciation is good enough. And I was like, whoa, like what is the data set backend? Like when we just do like text and we're just like translating things back and forth, A to B, B to A, like when you speak into it, like the whole interaction changes. Wow. And I started being like, wait a minute, it's not just in Duolingo. When we add voice to these different interfaces, how does this totally revolutionize what's going on? And so that kind of seed and spark of research questions has taken me through until now in kind of the research questions and being on the build side, right? Having previously worked at Nuance and many other companies now and projects, but just like this, I mean, Jenny's like, oh, people just liked it. Your copy editing, the ability to craft things, like that doesn't just happen overnight. And it's a constantly iterative process. And that's what I do now is, go through the backlogs and data-driven design and going back to, product and being like, okay, in the backlogs, we see this bug coming up again and again. Like, how do we triage this, iterate? And, we see, performance success like, oh, wow, that fixed 12% of this. Like you really have that iterative approach of how people actually speak and how they're actually interacting with the system. So I've seen it from, very, very T-shaped. And I think that academic of really the philosophy and watching our field change user experience,
No, I love that. So I actually just pushed a new skill that I've been working on for a while into beta this morning. And I finally got a couple of users to jump in and start using it. And I think what you're describing is one of my most exciting parts of it, is to see how other people use it. What errors are popping up? What are they saying? How are they, like it's a trivia game, right? So what are the right and wrong answers that they're giving to the questions? Are they too hard? Are they too easy? And I'm trying to do it all from a very data-driven perspective. So I think I completely identify with what you're saying there, which is that like being able to look at that stuff and understand how we can craft and continue to iterate on making a great experience is it's first and foremost in my mind a lot of the time. So that's great. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so we're going to do another one that's kind of a round robin. And Jenny, I'll have you go first on this one. What is it that you're working on today? What is the thing that gets you to work each day that you're working on?
So, freeze dance has taken off. It's got, especially during the pandemic, the idea behind this skill is to get kids moving and learning at the same time. And the usage during the pandemic has been insane. So I am adding more content. I am really proud that this the skills icon is a Latina girl, and I'm working on expanding her footprint in the skill store, and creating other skills around her. And truly, that keeps me waking up every morning and thinking in random places, like, oh, I'm having dinner. Oh, here's part of her story. Here's what she likes to do, and just kind of build her character a little bit more. I'm also working on the Brazilian Portuguese version of freeze dance, and then there are other skills, sort of like, in my head, that I need to map out.
Oh, that's fun. So you basically just had some artwork that was created by you or by someone else for your skill, and now you're kind of creating a world around that girl. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's very cool. I'm excited to see where you go with this, and I hope you'll keep us posted, because that sounds like an exciting path.
Thank you. I will.
Joan, what are you working on these days?
Oh yeah, well, I kind of talked about the product and research work, so I'll leave that one to the side. But I think also, I mean, the obvious thing is women in voice, and we I think community work, like, it is, especially during the pandemic, like, we had 10 new chapters launch in 2020. 10. Like, we have 20 chapters in 15 countries today. And so just, I think that the desire for community, and kind of, as mentioned on this one, the creativity and tinkering with new things, and people taking the time to be like, what am I doing with my life? Does this bring me joy? How do I kind of participate in my communities? And frankly, I thought that, during the pandemic, maybe people would shy away, or, who knows what the response would be. And I think people are just leaning into community in totally different ways.
Yeah.
So we're certainly seeing that, and we filed our nonprofit status.
Oh, great.
So, just really working on different partnerships and sponsors, and like, what does the next 12 months look like? So we'll be rolling out some really big announcements soon, but just really excited about, like, I just love the people I work with. I'm just, like, surrounded by powerhouses, and we're bringing more people on the team, and they're like, the caliber of people I get to work with is one of the top reasons I want to be part of this. I mean, the voice field is a lot of lovely folks, but I think I'm just super blessed to have this community and continue building it, frankly.
Yeah. 100% agree. And the folks that you've introduced me to that are part of your organization have been just so incredibly impressive. You really have quite a team surrounding you.
Oh, thanks.
Certainly. All right, Lorna.
Yeah, so for me, I'm doing a lot of quality control, because I did go a bit too overboard in the early years, creating a load of skills, and now I'm kind of settling down, and I've picked a handful of skills that I've done that I'm like, okay, this needs a new logo, this needs better content, and obviously the VUX as well needs improving, now that I've been able to experiment and understand what is good and what is bad. But also I miss building new projects as well. So I've been lucky enough to collaborate with other people, and do some freelancing work in the field. And then I'm currently working on a project from scratch, which is like a brain training skill, which hopefully I can apply all of my learnings into it and just get it out there and ready for people to use. So
yep, that's fun. So, but you're basically full-time skill development, right? That's your thing.
Yeah, I absolutely love it.
I do too. I wish I could dedicate more time to it. I do a little bit of development every morning. I do it all in public on a live stream, but I really wish I could expand that window to be 4, 6, 8 hours, because an hour and a half a day is not a lot. You can't make a ton of progress in that time. So I can't say that I'm not a little jealous of you, for sure.
No, and also, like, your live streams are really helpful, because I've learned already, because I watch it and when I can, and I've learned so much and so many cool features and shortcuts as well. So it's been a really big help. So
Well,
thank you.
That is why I do it. Like I could sit and just write code in my office and like just do it for me and move much faster. But I feel like watching me make mistakes, which by the way, I make plenty of them. But watching me make mistakes and kind of chunk my way through stuff, people are like, oh, I hadn't even considered that I might have to do that. Or this, like, I'm going to learn from his mistake next time I go through it. I feel like that's all kind of valuable. So thank you.
I'm sorry, I just want to quickly mention as well that like the Women in Voice, just going back to that, has really been a big help for me to kind of improve my confidence a bit, and also because I feel like I have like imposter syndrome, and I feel that it's been so helpful ever since I joined the Women in Voice community and meeting so many wonderful people on there.
Oh, that's great.
It's really helped. So just a massive thank you to.
You're gonna get me teary-eyed in the morning, Lana.
Oh, that's wonderful. I will tell you that regardless of how good you may be, that imposter syndrome sits on you forever. And success is just being able to ignore it. And I try to do that every day. Every day I'm on that stream and I'm just like, someone's watching me saying, why would you do any of it this way? And thankfully, no one's called me on it yet. But someday I'm going to get called out for being a full imposter for sure. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of rapid fire. We're going to mix some things up here in the middle. So all you have to do is just give a quick 1 or 2 word answer to each of these questions. The first one is, what is the favorite skill of yours that you have worked on or built? And Alana, I'll let you go first on this one.
I'd say Music Bop Adventures.
Say that one again.
Music Bop Adventures.
Music Bop Adventures. All right. I'm making, like, people have been asking in the chat about some of the skills we've mentioned, like Jenny's freeze dance. So I want to make sure that everybody can hear that. So freeze bop adventures, not freeze, music bop adventures. Yes. All right, Joan.
Yeah, well, I didn't build it, but I was a judge on the Alexa Conversations. And if anyone hasn't tried our art museum, which was the top winner, it blew my mind how, like, you can hear the footsteps when you transition. Like, you can hear the footsteps in the thing. You see the images of, like, the artwork. It speaks it out in French. Like, if the artwork is in French, like, the work that they did to build that in a multimodal, I was like, holy moly, like the amount of work that was done on this.
That is
deeply impressive. Art museum, exactly.
Yeah. Jenny, is it freeze dance, or is there something else you've built that you love?
It's freeze dance. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, awesome. That was first question. Second question, the number of voice-enabled devices that are currently plugged in your home. Joan, you want to go first on this one?
Sure. I think the answer would be 4.
Okay.
Do you want me to list them, or
like whatever rooms they're in or whatever?
Yeah. I've got I've got my iPhone, which I use Siri all the time. I've got a Google Smart. I got something Google in the living room. I've got. Wait, is that 2? Oh, now you're gonna check me. My TV is smart enabled, which, gosh, that's nice. Oh my gosh, I did not realize. Is that 3? That's only 3? Oh no, I swear there was a 4th. Wait, I practiced.
Do you have an Echo in your house at all?
I do, but the Wi-Fi drops all the time.
Oh.
I live in an old apartment, and I
got it.
And I have one. Trust me.
No, I believe that you do, and I don't take it personally if you don't. I was just curious. Because you were listening out and I hadn't heard one yet. So
no, it's because the sad thing is when you talk to it and the Wi-Fi drops. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had this problem. But the glitches. Alarna, help me out. You got multiple echoes going on?
I've got too many. It's embarrassing. Plugged in though. Some have had to plug out. Okay, no, not in the same room like that. But like in this room right now, I've got 3 plugged in at the moment. Both this one I really like because it's quiet, and then you have the screen one, and then a Google version, and then in the kitchen we have another screen one, the Echo 10.
Nice.
Jealous of that one behind you though.
Yeah.
It's orange.
I'm really quite a fan of that new one. That for those of you that haven't seen it, this is the new Echo Show 10. It actually just came out last Thursday, and it has a floating screen. And here, if I unmute it, just quick. Alexa.
Oh yeah, these pivot ones.
Right.
Oh
That's
yes.
definitely one for the
Yes.
kitchen for sure.
Very,
And
very
then the clock one as well. You know, the genius idea, because I did have like an Echo Spot, but in the bedroom I don't really need it. So the Echo dot with the clock is definitely good. And the thing is, so in this place I have about 7 that are plugged in. It's like an apartment, but in my family home, because I moved just for a bit of scenery, a change of scenery. But in the family home where I'm posted, that's where we have like 20, 20 everywhere.
Yeah.
We love music. We love blasting music everywhere. So we walk into one room.
That's fun.
And
Yeah,
then
the whole house audio is excellent when you have a bunch of devices. It really is. All right, Jenny.
I have 9 in the apartment. Yeah, there's 2 in this room, and then I'm counting the Apple TV because you can talk to Siri and
Sure.
ask for stuff. The phone, yeah, I have. They're all over.
It's amazing when you start counting. There was a point at which I used to pay attention to how many processors I had in my house. And that number I can't even keep track anymore. Everything has a processor now. But there was a time where it was a couple of handfuls, maybe at the most, of processors in your house. And now it's just crazy. And you think about all the devices we have anymore that have microphones in them that have speakers. It's
If
powerful.
I can make a joke, I have a friend in hardware and he's like, wait, what couldn't be voice enabled? I was like, if it's hardware that runs software, it's a matter of time.
Yep. Yeah, I've been asking, like, why isn't someone making an Alexa enabled toaster? Like, I use that as a joke, but like legitimately it already sits on your kitchen counter. Why wouldn't you have an Alexa enabled toaster? It used to be a joke, and I think it actually makes a lot of sense. All right, thank you for that one. All right, so next one, I asked about your favorite thing that you'd worked on or had been involved with in any way. What is your favorite thing to do with Alexa? And this time I don't want you to use things that you have been involved with. So I'll let Jenny go first this time.
So I like to find Easter eggs. I'll ask
Oh, yeah.
random questions. But I do play Question of the Day and Jeopardy for fun.
Nice. Nice. So do you tend to just, and this is an interesting habit to describe, do you tend to just throw out questions in the air? Like when it comes to mind, you're just like, tell me about this or give me this information.
Yeah, or I wonder what Alexa thinks about this. Let me ask her.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I do that a lot too. It annoys my family to no end. Like we'll just be in the middle of a conversation. I'm like, Alexa, tell me about this thing. And it's amazing how often they look at me and go like, really? Do we need to do that right now?
Yes.
That's good. How about you, Lorna? What's your favorite thing to do?
Definitely turning off the lights, turning on the lights. I don't think I've touched a light switch in forever in the rooms that they've been in. But that's my favorite thing. I love it as well because it's a great way to save energy, electric bill. Just putting it in a lamp instead of using the main lights, and then also asking for the market, the crypto market. That's
Nice.
what I'm doing now.
Nice. What's your favorite crypto? I'm not into it at all, but I certainly know what they are.
Oh, I got into crypto because of Doge, but my favorite one is probably ADA.
All right.
I'm a fellow Doge hodler.
What is the saying these days? Doge to $1?
To the moon.
Yeah. All right, Joan.
Doge to the moon. Well, mine I think is somewhat similar to yours, Jeff, is like I ask the same questions to my devices and hear different answers. And I think just being like, here are the updates the team's working on.
Yeah.
Like, and also I think the order of things, I am shocked when I say things in one order and then I say them, how we set up verbs, all the different kinds of commands and just how fast things are moving. Like to have updates changed that, or I don't know. I'm
it is
impressed.
A very different model of software. There aren't a lot of people that are using truly dedicated cloud services in that fashion, right? If you think about like any of the apps you have on your phone, you're running a local version of that software on your phone, and it might talk to some services in the cloud, but you're running the software locally on your phone, and so you don't see changes on an hourly or daily basis. But with a fully dedicated cloud service like Alexa, you just talk to a microphone the same way you always would, but what happens on the back end can change minute to minute, right? It's quite remarkable to see how that stuff changes and iterates. And it definitely is one of the things that I really enjoy, being able to see how that stuff changes, and just how much work really goes into, like, someone had to write all of those snarky responses and those Easter eggs that Jenny's mentioning, and like all of that stuff. There's people behind the scenes working on all of that stuff. All right, let's move on to the next one. I've been really good about not forgetting anybody. I'm always concerned that I've gotten each of you an opportunity to speak, but I think I'm good so far. What is the coolest voice invention that you've seen that has helped people during the pandemic? This is a little bit of a harder one, but Alarna, I'll start with you. Let's see what you've got to think.
Well, this is a hard one. I think when you said that, the first thing to come to mind, and not just because I'm stalling, is I'd say podcasts, if that counts.
Yeah, no, I'll let that fly. That passes.
Yeah, I think podcasts for sure.
So would you say that because of this pandemic, you've listened to a lot more podcasts than you would have otherwise?
Not me personally, but I know a lot of people have like definitely got into podcasts. I think my behavior is the same in terms of how my behavior in terms of listening to podcasts hasn't changed, but I think I think podcasts are definitely something that's helped people in the pandemic, just hearing another voice maybe.
Yeah.
So
yeah. How about you, Jenny? Do you have anything that comes to mind?
I've been spending a lot of time on Clubhouse, and that's sort of helped me find community, find people with other interests or similar interests, and get in those rooms and just talk to other humans.
Right. Yeah, I haven't decided if I like Clubhouse or not yet. There's a lot to like, right? There's a lot of audio and conversations and stuff happening all the time. And one of all of our friends, Dr. Terry Fisher, who's up in Canada, I follow him on there, and I'm just blown away. Like, I think that's all he does now. It's amazing how many times I get a notification that Terry's in this room, and then Terry's in this room. And I'm like, that guy is everywhere. Amazing.
That like totally doesn't surprise, honestly.
No, not at all. But, are you guys all on Clubhouse, Joan, Alarna?
Not yet. I've had so many invites. Frankly, I'm so busy, and they happen all day long, as you mentioned. Like, I got things to do.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to, or I've been invited to so many that I'm like, oh, I have FOMO. I'm like, whoa, that person's speaking. Like, maybe I just need to test it out and see what all the buzz is about.
Yeah, I'm with you though, but I feel like it could be a complete time suck, right? Like, you just
that could be a full-time job.
Hold in, and
there you go.
But like, I got into a cool conversation yesterday. I was invited to be a panelist on a thing about IoT and like the future of small devices and building circuits for yourself and whatever. And it was really fun and interesting. But I don't think I could do that all the time. Like you, I have so much I have to get done. It would be really, really hard.
Well, and finding focus during the pandemic has been hard for me. I don't know about for anybody else, but like getting dedicated flow and brain time to, like, that has been like, I have to dedicate it out on my calendar, and like it's finding that clear headspace has been really difficult. So, but related to the COVID one, Jeff, if I'll just respond to that one, usage has been going up and up with people at home more, but especially for the senior population. I don't know if anyone's seen that research, but like loneliness, especially when you're a very vulnerable population, and just like loneliness is like worse for your body than cigarettes. Have you heard this research is so depressing. And there was actually a BBC special doing research on like people in senior folks' homes speaking to their voice device and saying that they felt like it was a friend, and they could just speak out loud. Like, it was more normalizing, like literally having a conversation out loud. And, during the pandemic, we're leveraging all the tech we got. We were leveraging whatever tools,
right,
and just really combating like the physical effect, even if you don't have COVID, like being isolated. I thought that was really beautiful, but also like, gosh, cigarettes, like it's really toxic for our bodies. So we're social creatures.
My grandmother's 99 years old. And still just super strong and going great. But she is in an assisted living facility. And as that, there's a lot of loneliness, right? If you don't care about the other people that happen to live around you, like your actual friends and family aren't there all the time. And I've been pushing my parents for 3 years to get an Echo Show in there so that we could call her and do video chats and whatever. And my parents were absolutely convinced that this place didn't offer Wi-Fi and didn't have it available, didn't whatever. And so as the pandemic started, I was like, look, you can't even go in there now, because they used to go visit her a couple times a week. And I said, you've got to find, they have to have Wi-Fi. Like, that's impossible for me to believe that this big facility doesn't have Wi-Fi in the building. And she went and asked the right people, and they're like, yeah, of course, that's included in like the cost of everything else. So if they want, I was like, oh my gosh. So we finally got an Echo Show in there. And so now she can call us, we can call her. And it's amazing to just have those kind of voice things. And then we also set it up as a digital picture frame. So we all are funneling photos into one specific folder. And then when she's not using it, she gets to see pictures of all the crazy things that are, because she's not on social media or anything. So it's really, really nice to be able to share, just what happened with my kids today or whatever, without having to like take the time out to like interrupt a phone call or whatever. You can just push some pictures out, and it's great. Yeah. That's fantastic. Okay. So last question in our speed round that has not been too fast is one reason that the people that are watching should look into building something for voice. Joan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, great question. Look into something. Well, I think there's like the bigger level, and then there's like the fun day-to-day. Like our devices, as we mentioned, like what devices don't have a voice component? Just kind of like as we saw with the mobile revolution, like, oh, these clunky apps, whoa, suddenly you need an app to be viable, right? And I think today we're still in this early stages, but things are getting more sophisticated. And I talk to companies that are like, our competitor is like 2 years like in front of us. Like, we need a silver bullet now. And so I think kind of the iterating and starting a little clunky, test with an MVP of, we have this problem, let's try this. I try to talk about conversational AI. It could be a lot of different things. Yeah. But I think just testing and iterating and talking to teams like, I could just build this. What would the next flow look like? Starting, and I think that curiosity, like once you get into it, you can't, or it's hard to stop. Like, yeah. I find it so fun and really thinking about quality user experience and how we can build those today.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the accessibility issues, I think that there's a lot that voice brings to the table, and being able to think about how I can provide a voice experience to something that I may already have a website or an app or whatever else for. The rule I always use is from The Wizard of Oz. If you think about Dorothy and her ruby slippers, if it takes more than 3 clicks to get to something in your app or your website, it should be voice enabled, because that's too long for me to take it out of my pocket and dig in and log in and do all the stuff. Let me just ask for it, right? It would make my life a whole lot easier. So that's a great point. How about you, Jenny?
I think, and this is coming from my personal experience, you just never know how something you build can affect someone's life. Like, I have been blown away by grandparents leaving reviews saying how this has helped them, how my skill has helped them get closer to their grandchildren. I also have a conversation starter skill called Chit Chat, and the idea behind it was to help get people talking in real life, because most of the time we're like plugged into our phone or laptop. So it would ask you questions, and you'd kind of go around the table and answer them, and hopefully you get surprising and funny responses from your family members. So what I would say to someone, do it, but build something simple and iterate from there, like Joan said. But you never know how something you're building will change someone's life.
Very, very true. I think that's a great perspective. There is so much about being able to just put your software out there, whether or not it's voice stuff, but you have an idea, you have a passion for some problem that you want to solve with software, and you'd be amazed the number of people that have been looking for just that solution. So I think that's an excellent perspective. How about you, Larna?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say we've yet to have the multi-billion-pound app made on the platform yet, so that person could be you. So why would that stop you?
Yeah. Let's. I would love for one of you to be the first multi-billion dollar skill creator. That would be amazing. I won't be. I build skills all the time, but I'm not in a position to make major profits from those things because of my employee status, but I still love building. But I would hope that many of you, whether you're watching or one of the guests that are here today, hopefully one of you will be that person. All right, so I want to move on to another question as we talk a little bit about the future. As we, we're almost a quarter of the way into 2021 already, as hard as that is to believe. And for all of you, I'd like your perspective on predictions. What do you think will be one of the big, important advancements in voice AI over the next year to 2 years? And Lauren, I'll start with you since I finished with you last time.
Oh, I definitely think voice will be more seamless. So I think there'll be like an invisible shift from looking at smart speakers to assistants. So people might not see the Echo Dot as Alexa the voice. They'll see Alexa as somewhere like everywhere. So they won't just regard oh, she's not a human. They won't regard it as a machine, in a sense as this, but more like, oh, I can just speak and it will respond back to me.
Yeah.
From anything.
That's a good one. And I think that's a common problem we see a lot, is that people refer to these devices as Alexas, and they really aren't, right? They're even named that way. That's an Echo. This is an Echo Show, and Alexa is the AI that lives inside of it. And I think you're probably right. I mean, I don't have any visibility. There's no leaking here or anything, but I think that is something that I hope to see as well, is kind of that ambient AI that's always around and always present and ready to go whenever we need it, or ideally anticipates our needs and is ready before we need it. That would be even better. How about you, Jenny?
So I see the technology further embedded into our lives, like into healthcare, into the car, and then just people adopting it a little faster even than it has been in the past few years, because we're looking 1 to 2 years out. So I see it just being more embedded into our lives. The fact that my mother is like, oh my God, I want an Alexa, and she set it up herself and was able to talk to it, it is a good sign. So yeah.
Very cool. So just much broader adoption across a number of, like you said, industries and locations. I think that's exciting. All right, Joan, your turn.
Totally. Well, it's interesting that Jenny mentions the two verticals I was planning to mention also, which is automotive and healthcare, or the medical space in general. I mean, my friend was joking the other day, like, wait, if I just had a voice-enabled device, does my car become more like a Tesla? Like overnight, I stick some IoT on and I can have, all these features. I also think, just kind of back to, I alluded to it with the art museum stuff, but I really believe in multimodal and the different ways we can show things. Sometimes I just want an answer, give me the answer and I hear it out loud. Sometimes it's more sophisticated. It's like a driving route.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I hate driving. I'm not and being to see it and ask follow-up questions. Like, we already have assets in house. Why wouldn't we leverage that? It's a complicated build. I won't pretend it isn't, but I really see fitting the right use case. And especially with automotive and medical, people are like, duh. Why doesn't this exist already?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The example in healthcare that I always use is, I want my device to just pipe up and say, hey, Jeff, you have a dentist appointment next Tuesday. And I don't know if I've shared this with any of you before, but that is something that I'm really excited about, is for it to be able to do that, because you have to think about all the inner workings that live behind that, right? It has to be able to talk to my healthcare company to make sure I'm eligible for whatever the treatment is. It has to be able to talk to my dentist's schedule to be able to schedule and book those things for me. It has to be able to know my calendar and my preferences to be able to know when I would want to go to the dentist, because they might have an appointment at 7 a.m., but that doesn't mean I want a 7 a.m. dentist appointment. That sounds terrible. So as we think about all those pieces, I didn't even ask it to do it. It just figured out that, like, oh, it's been 6 months, Jeff. It's time for you to go get a cleaning. And it just sets everything up for me. That is a world I can't wait to see. And you're right. That's something we're going to see quite a bit of, I think, in the future. All right, we have about 10 minutes left. And I just want to remind everyone that may have joined about halfway through. We're talking to some trailblazing women in the world of voice. I have Joan, Jenny, and Alarna here with us today, and I'm really glad that you guys were able to join. This has been fantastic so far. So as we're getting to the end, though, we have an audience of developers and device makers and business decision makers, voice designers, all sorts of things. If you had to sell them on the idea that they should continue investing in voice, and I think a lot of the people in the audience probably are already believers, but if you had to sell somebody in that kind of position on why they should be investing in voice, what would you tell them? And so, Jenny, I'll ask you that question first.
I might be preaching to the choir, but there's just so much opportunity right now. It's a good time to get in. Yeah. So I just think there's so much opportunity to still tinker and play around and really make an impact. That's
I think that's a good one. Like the opportunity is certainly a big one for me. How about you, Lorna?
Yeah, I would say that there's so much left to be done. You've got hardware, as Jones said, there's so much hardware that you can enable voice into, and yeah, it's if only voice isn't going away, I think it's going to turn into more of a, if anything, it will turn into a complementary asset to multiple things. So it's like the mobile, but voice will always be there because I can't see it going back.
No, I agree. We're not putting this genie back in the bottle for sure. How about you, Joan?
Yeah. Goodness. I literally talk to companies who wish they'd started earlier, even if it's just a few people. And so I think related to the tinkering and testing things out and MVPs, the investment doesn't need to be substantial to see how it could. And I frequently talk to companies that are like, ooh, this is a problem for this team. But actually 2 teams over, they're having a similar but different problem. Right. And I think really trying to push people to think about conversational AI in a broader sense. Is that chat? Is that multimodal? How does that fit your company, your vertical, whatever it is? So I think kind of the tinkering, the trying, the big open picture, kind of Jenny's like, there is so much to explore. Lorna's like, oh my gosh, like it's so exciting to be so early. And I think there's some like disbelief, but also it's going to evolve to fit well. And so just being on that curve, and I think not losing hope, I think, in some respects.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. And I think that's something that some people have a hard time like dealing with, is that as we think about voice, I mean, we've been at this for 5 or 6 years now. And people are like, well, surely it's mature by now, like 5 or 6 years. That's a lifetime for some products. But in almost every bit of software that we've lived in this world, it's all been based on the same idea that you interface with a device and you type or use a mouse or whatever to interface. But we really haven't explored the best ways to interface with a computer with voice. We've found lots of ways to do it. But when we think about best practices and the way that things really fit together and the best way to accomplish specific tasks just with voice, to become familiar in the same way that we now identify things like text boxes and buttons, those things don't exist in voice. And I think they will eventually. It'll just be obvious, easy ways for people to navigate through a voice interface. But it's really exciting right now to just, I mean, Amazon always says it's day one, but it really is. There's just, we're so early yet in how we explore and understand how this stuff really works for real people.
Yeah, and if I could just totally agree with you, I think being in the software land, we just deploy so fast.
Yeah.
But when I talk to people in medical and they're like, we have 7 to 10 year product life cycles.
Yeah.
Like to eventually deploy, here's all the steps we got to do. And so if they want to try out AR, voice, gesture, like we're going to see some amazing things on the market that have been gestating for years.
Yeah.
For years.
For sure. All right. So I have one other question for you, Joan, actually, that came from the audience. And I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure that I ask it and that you have an opportunity to answer this because you have the Women in Voice tag right there on your name. The question is Women in Voice exclusively for women?
Oh, what a great question. I mean, I think what Women in Voice looks at, and going back to our mission, for those who don't know about Women in Voice, it's about celebrating, amplifying, connecting women in the voice space and really thinking about diversity. And, it's so funny to talk about diversity in 2021. It's like, isn't this obvious by now? Like, I mean, but as Lorna has mentioned, really building community, and it's not easy being a woman in tech, right? It's not easy, but Jeff and I, we're like being an ally. We love how we can participate in the community, and a lot of men thinking about, wow, I want a more diverse team. How do I foster an amazing culture here? So even though the words are Women in Voice, almost all of our public events are open to allies as well. We have amazing allies on our advisory board. Like we are in collaboration, fundamentally, and that's how we believe we move the field forward.
Yeah, and I think it's really prevalent for me being the straight white male. I often have an opportunity to look across the landscape and see all of the different kinds of people that are out there, and the diversity that brings to it. Like every time I sit in a meeting with people that don't look like me, I am just inspired by the different angles and ideas and perspectives that they have on problems. And the reason that we have things like the Women in Voice, which is good. It's great to have these kinds of organizations that are lifting people up and celebrating the successes of that group. But the person that asked about, is this women only? I don't think any of the problems really get solved if it's women only.
Absolutely.
Because the issue isn't technically with women, right? Like the problem that we have with technology and diversity is often a problem of the people that aren't part of whatever that diverse group is. And so it's on people like me and my gender as a whole to be able to recognize, embrace, and acknowledge what's going on and try to do our best to solve it. Because if we're not involved, if we're not taking a part in this, nothing's going to change. You can be very, very vocal as a population that's underrepresented, but until the overrepresented population starts to pay attention, I think it's really, really hard to make any progress. So you will
100% agree. 100%.
You'll always find me as an ally because I just think it's too important. So
well, thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
I'm glad we could touch on that for a moment. All right, so I think it's time for us to put a bow on this. Is there any last things you guys like to share? I always like to give people an opportunity if there's something you want to mention or plug or point people to. And I'll start with you, Alarna. Is there anything you would like people to go check out? Maybe it's just follow you on Twitter, whatever it might be.
I think I'll just take this moment to say that everyone stay safe and obviously, just be kind to one another. We're in 2021. Let's look on the bright side and get through this all together. So that's all I want to say.
All right. Jenny?
I will echo Alarna's sentiment, but also I want to add that if you're new to the industry, or even if you're a veteran of the voice industry, follow me on Twitter, reach out to me if you ever have any questions. I'd be happy to help if
great.
I can.
Thank you. And Joan?
Yeah, I think touching on, follow me on Twitter as you wish. I've got a very unusual name. But, the Women in Voice community and really amplifying it. One of our slogans is join the party. And I really feel like that inclusive, warm, innovative space that we're in, continuing to build it together.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right, so if you guys would like to read more about Joan and Jenny and Alarna, we just recently published a blog post about all three of them. And you can find that at developer.amazon.com on our blog. Another thing that I'd love to share with you is that there is a Slack channel, speaking of communities. And if all three of you aren't in there, I think you might be, but if you're not, we created a Alexa community Slack for people to come and join and talk and share and ask questions and engage with one another, as well as the Amazon product team and folks like me that are all there hanging out. And you can find that by just jumping into your browser and writing alexa.design/Slack. And you'll be able to sign up and jump right in. So make sure that you check that out. And then finally, I want to make sure that you guys know that every week we have, there's Chime just jumping all over my stream. So we have office hours every Tuesday. So for anybody that's even considering getting into building, every Tuesday you can come find us at 9 a.m. Eastern. I'm sorry, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, where we're doing a bunch of office hours answering questions. You'll find us here on Twitch on the same channel and YouTube. And then we do things on APL. We do things like this with this Alexa and Friends episode. So we really hope you'll all join us. So for Joan, Jenny, and Alarna, thank you guys all so much for participating today. It's been absolutely a pleasure and my honor to talk with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Certainly. All right. Thank you guys all for tuning in. We will be here again next week, and we really look forward to seeing you. Take care.